I should have known something was wrong the moment Dr. Patterson stopped looking at me. It happened slowly at first. A glance toward my daughter-in-law instead of me when he asked about my sleep. A pause before he spoke, like he was waiting for permission from someone who wasn't his patient. By the third appointment, he wasn't even pretending anymore. "Mrs. Brennan, your daughter-in-law mentioned you've been having some confusion lately." I opened my mouth to answer, but Claire beat me to it. "She has, Doctor. Last week she couldn't remember if she'd taken her blood pressure medication. And she keeps asking me the same questions about Dad's life insurance. I'm worried." This story is inspired by real-life submissions. Names and identifying details have been changed. I turned to look at her. Claire's hand was on my arm, gentle, concerned. Her voice had that careful softness people use with children and the very old. But her eyes were sharp, watching the doctor's face, watching his fingers move across the keyboard. "I didn't say that," I started, but Dr. Patterson was already nodding. "Memory issues are common at your age, Mrs. Brennan. It's nothing to be embarrassed about." Your age? Like those two words explained everything about me. Like they erased 50 years of managing a household budget, raising 3 children, running the library volunteer program. Like turning 72 meant my brain had simply stopped. "I remember everything just fine," I said, keeping my voice level. "I take my medication every morning with my coffee. I haven't asked Claire anything about the insurance more than once." Claire squeezed my arm. "Mom, you did. You asked me 3 times on Tuesday alone. That's why I'm here with you now. I don't want you to feel alone in this." The thing is, she was lying. I knew she was lying. But when I looked at Dr. Patterson's face, I saw he believed her. Why wouldn't he? She was younger, sharper, the one taking time out of her busy day to escort her aging mother-in-law to appointments. I was just the old woman who probably didn't realize how confused she'd become. "I think we should run some cognitive tests," Dr. Patterson said, typing, "just to establish a baseline. Claire, have you noticed any other changes? Difficulty with familiar tasks? Misplacing things? Mood changes?" Well, she did leave the stove on last month. That was once, and I caught it myself before, and she's been more withdrawn since Robert passed. Not returning calls, forgetting lunch dates. I stared at her. I'd skipped one lunch with her because I had a dentist appointment. I'd told her a week in advance. Dr. Patterson's expression shifted into something that looked like pity. He turned his monitor slightly, and that's when I saw it. A note in my electronic chart, dated 2 weeks ago. After my last appointment, an appointment I'd gone to alone. Patient exhibits signs of short-term memory deficit. Family reports increasing confusion and difficulty with ADLs. Recommend follow-up evaluation for cognitive decline. I never said any of that. No one asked me about activities of daily living. I'd come in for a routine blood pressure check, been in and out in 15 minutes. "Who wrote that?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Dr. Patterson glanced at the screen. "It says here the information was provided during a follow-up call with your designated family contact. I didn't designate anyone." "Mom, I called because I was worried. You were so upset after that appointment. I thought the doctor should know." Claire's voice was patient, almost patronizing. "You probably just don't remember." There it was again. That phrase that was starting to follow me everywhere. You probably just don't remember. "Now, I'm going to have Shelley at the front desk schedule you for a full cognitive assessment," Dr. Patterson continued. "And Claire, I'm also going to send over some paperwork for medical power of attorney. Given your mother-in-law's age and these emerging issues, it might be time to think about advance directives. Just to protect her. Protect me." "From what?" Claire nodded slowly, seriously. "I've actually been researching that. And there are some Medicare forms I wanted to ask about decisions we might need to simplify going forward. For her sake. Simplified decisions." The words landed wrong. Too smooth. Too prepared. Dr. Patterson pulled out a form, pointed to signature lines. If you can both sign here, it authorizes Claire to receive copies of your medical records and communicate with our office on your behalf. I stared at the form. My name was already printed at the top. I need to think about this, I said. Mom, it's just to help. So I can talk to your doctors if you forget something or need me to explain things later. Dr. Patterson nodded. It's very common, Mrs. Brennan. Most of my older patients have a family member who helps coordinate care. Older patients. Coordinate care. The language was so clean, so reasonable. I picked up the pen. Put it down. Can I take this home? Claire's jaw tightened. Just barely. Of course. Whatever makes you comfortable. But I saw her exchange a look with Dr. Patterson. A look that said exactly what they were both thinking. See? Confused. Resistant. She doesn't even understand this is for her own good. When we left, I asked Shelley at the front desk for a printed copy of my visit summary. She handed it to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The kind of smile you give to someone you're humoring. In the car, Claire talked about dinner plans, about my grandson's soccer game, about how lucky I was to have family looking out for me. I folded the visit summary into my purse and said nothing. That night, alone in the house that still smelled like Robert's aftershave, I read the summary 3 times. The note was there. The one I'd seen on the screen. The one I never authorized. Someone had called my doctor's office and told them I was confused, forgetful, declining. Someone had started writing a version of me that I didn't recognize, and I needed to know why. The number on the receipt was smudged, but I could still read it. I called the clinic the next morning, before Claire could show up with coffee and concern. Riverside Medical? This is Tanya? Yes. Hello? This is Margaret Brennan. I need a complete copy of my medical records. Please. A pause. Typing. Okay, Mrs. Brennan. We'll need you to fill out a release form. Are you familiar with our patient portal? I'd like the records mailed to me, please. More typing. A sigh, barely hidden. Ma'am, the portal is much faster. Do you have someone who can help you access it? A family member, maybe. There it was. That assumption. That at my age, I couldn't possibly navigate a website. I can manage a computer just fine. I'd still prefer a mailed copy. It's just, we have authorization forms on file that allow designated contacts to request records on your behalf. It might be easier if what authorization forms? Let me check. A pause. It looks like Claire Brennan is listed as your primary family contact with full access to records and portal management. That was set up 3 months ago. 3 months ago. Right after Robert's funeral. Right when Claire started insisting she help with everything. I don't remember signing that. Tanya's voice shifted, took on that careful, pitying tone I was learning to hate. It's okay, honey. A lot of our older patients don't remember every form. That's why we have family help. But if you want duplicate copies sent to your home address, I can process that. There's a small fee. Fine. Please send everything. Every note, every call, every form with my name on it. That'll take about 10 business days. I thanked her and hung up, my hand shaking slightly. Not from confusion, from anger. The envelope arrived 9 days later. I waited until Claire left after her daily check-in before I opened it. The stack was thick. Years of routine appointments, prescriptions, test results. I flipped through slowly, looking for anything unusual. And then I found it. A patient portal access agreement, dated 3 months ago. My signature at the bottom. Except it wasn't quite right. The M in Margaret was too looped. The tail on the N in Brennan was too short. It was close enough that a busy office worker wouldn't question it. But I'd been signing my name for 72 years. That wasn't my signature. I kept reading. There was a HIPAA authorization form, same date, giving Claire permission to discuss my care with any provider. Another form designating her as my healthcare proxy in the event of incapacity. Incapacity. The word sat heavy on the page. I picked up my phone, fingers moving faster than they had in months, and logged into the patient portal using the username printed on the letter. Invalid password. I tried again. Same result. I clicked Forgot Password and entered my email address. This email is not associated with an active account. My chest tightened. I grabbed the papers again, searching for the portal setup confirmation. There. A different email address. One I didn't recognize. cbrenan.care@gmail.com. Claire's initials. But not an email I'd ever seen her use. I tried calling the clinic back. Got voicemail. Left a message that probably sounded too urgent, too paranoid. An old woman losing track of her own accounts? That evening, I searched my own email. Looked for any confirmation from Riverside Medical? Any password reset? Any portal setup? Nothing. But I did find something else. An email from 3 months ago, buried in my trash folder. The subject line read, "Update your patient portal access." I opened it. It looked official Riverside Medical letterhead, professional formatting. It instructed me to click a link and verify my information for security purposes. I never clicked it. I barely remembered seeing it. I usually deleted emails like that as spam, but someone could have used that link. Someone with access to my email, my house, my life. Someone who knew I'd just lost my husband and wasn't paying attention to small details. Someone who could practice my signature from the sympathy cards I'd written, the thank you notes, the insurance forms spread across my kitchen table for weeks after Robert died. I sat in Robert's chair, the one I still couldn't bring myself to move, and stared at the fake signature on the page. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't age. This was deliberate. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Hi, Mom. Just checking in. How are you feeling today? Do you need me to pick up your prescriptions?" I stared at the message. At the casual concern, the daily checking in, the slow, steady insertion of herself into every corner of my life, I typed back, "I'm fine. Thank you." But I wasn't fine. Someone had signed my name. Someone had changed my email. Someone had accessed my medical records and started building a file that made me look incompetent. And I was starting to understand that the person sitting next to me at doctor's appointments wasn't there to help me. She was there to replace me. I arrived at Riverside Medical 40 minutes early for my follow-up appointment. Claire had texted twice asking if she should pick me up. I told her I was running errands and would meet her there. I didn't plan to meet her there at all. The waiting room was nearly empty. Just me and a young mother with a sleeping baby. I approached the desk, but instead of Shelley, there was a different woman. Younger, with kind eyes and scrubs covered in tiny cartoon stethoscopes. "Can I help you?" "I'm early for my 11 o'clock. I was hoping to speak with the nurse before my appointment. Just privately." She glanced at her computer. "Let me check who's assigned to your case today." Her eyes scanned the screen. "Looks like it's Ginny. She's finishing up with another patient, but I can let her know you'd like a word. Please." 10 minutes later, a woman in navy scrubs called my name. She was maybe 50, with gray streaking through her dark hair and the kind of face that had seen enough to know when something wasn't right. "Mrs. Brennan, I'm Jenny Martinez. Come on back." She led me to an exam room, but instead of leaving, she closed the door and sat down. "The desk said you wanted to talk before your appointment." I'd rehearsed this. But now, sitting across from her, I felt foolish. What was I going to say? That I thought my daughter-in-law was manipulating my medical records. That I suspected forgery. It sounded paranoid. It sounded exactly like what a confused elderly woman would say. I started, then stopped. I saw something in my chart last time. A note about confusion and memory problems. But I never said those things. And I think someone else has been calling about me, saying things that aren't true. Jenny's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition? Maybe. What kind of things? That I'm forgetful? That I can't manage my medications? That I'm declining? I pulled the printed records from my purse. And these forms, someone signed my name, but it's not my signature. Jenny took the papers, studied them carefully. She was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Brennan, can I be honest with you? My stomach dropped. Here it comes. The gentle explanation that I'm mistaken. That families do this because they care. That at my age it's natural to feel confused about what I did or didn't authorize. But that's not what she said. I've been a nurse for 28 years. And I've seen this before. She kept her voice low. Family members who start speaking for patients, who volunteer information that doesn't match what I observe, who push for documentation of decline before there's any clinical evidence. I felt something crack open in my chest. Relief, validation. She believed me. The notes in your chart, Jenny continued, they don't match your behavior. Every time you've been here, you've been oriented, appropriate, clear in your responses. You remember your medications, your medical history, your husband's passing. You don't exhibit any signs of cognitive impairment. Then why? Because families sometimes help in ways that aren't helpful. And sometimes, she hesitated. Sometimes they have other reasons. She stood, walked to the computer, typed something. I'm going to show you something, but you didn't see this from me. Understand? I nodded. She pulled up my chart, scrolled back. This is your cognitive screening from 18 months ago, before your husband passed. Standard assessment we do for all patients over 65. I looked at the screen. Normal. Everything marked normal. And this, she scrolled forward, is the note from your last appointment. The one where Dr. Patterson documented concerns. I read it again. The words that had been haunting me. But you weren't here for that appointment, Jenny said quietly. That note was added after a phone call. From your daughter-in-law, can I have a copy of this? The old assessment? Jenny glanced at the door, then back at me. Technically, I shouldn't print from a patient's chart without a formal request. But I'm going to step out for a minute. If something accidentally prints while I'm gone, and you happen to take it, well, she gave me a meaningful look. The printer's right there. She left. I heard her footsteps fade down the hall. My hands shook as I clicked print. The machine hummed to life, spitting out 2 pages. I folded them quickly, tucked them into my purse, just as Jenny returned. Everything okay? She asked. Yes, thank you. Mrs. Brennan, if someone is misrepresenting your condition, you need to be careful. These kinds of things, they can escalate, especially if there's a reason someone wants you declared incompetent. The word landed like a stone. Incompetent. You mean like legally? I mean like guardianship, conservatorship, someone making medical and financial decisions on your behalf. She sat down again, her voice firm. If that's what's happening, you need more than a nurse who believes you. You need documentation, and you need it fast. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Running late? Be there in 20. Wait for me? Okay. I looked at Jenny. She can't know I talked to you. I never saw you until your appointment started. Jenny stood, opened the door. But Mrs. Brennan, whatever's happening, don't wait too long to do something about it. Once certain paperwork gets filed, it becomes very hard to fight. She left me alone in the exam room. I pulled out the printed pages, stared at the official stamp at the top. Riverside Medical Center. Cognitive assessment normal. Dated 6 months before someone started saying I was confused. For the first time since Robert died, I didn't feel crazy. I felt targeted. The envelope from Social Security came on a Thursday. I almost missed it in the stack of junk mail and grocery store circulars. But the return address caught my eye. SSA Office of Disability Determinations. I didn't apply for disability. My hands were steady as I opened it, but my heart wasn't. Dear Ms. Brennan, we have received a request for evaluation of benefit eligibility and mental capacity determination. As part of this process, we will be scheduling an assessment to determine your ability to manage your financial affairs. A representative PIA designation has been suggested by your appointed family representative. Representative PIA. The words swam on the page. I read it twice. 3 times. There was a case number. A date the request was filed. 2 weeks ago. I grabbed my phone, found the number at the bottom of the letter, and dialed. Social Security Administration. This is Derek speaking. For quality assurance, this call may be monitored or recorded. Yes? Hello. My name is Margaret Brennan. I received a letter about a capacity evaluation, but I never requested this. Typing. A long pause. Can you verify your Social Security number for me? I recited it. More typing. Okay, Mrs. Brennan. His voice shifted, became slower, more deliberate. Like he was reading to a child. It looks like the request was filed on your behalf by a family member who's concerned about your ability to manage your benefits safely. Who filed it? I see here it was submitted by your designated family representative, Claire Brennan. My throat tightened. I didn't designate her. Ma'am, according to our records, you submitted Form SSA 1696. Appointment of representative, about 6 weeks ago. That gives her authority to act on your behalf regarding your Social Security matters. I never filled out that form. Derek's voice took on that familiar, patient tone. I understand this process can be confusing, especially for individuals who may be experiencing memory difficulties. That's exactly why the Representative PE program exists too. Make sure vulnerable adults don't lose access to their benefits because they can't manage the paperwork. Vulnerable adults. Memory difficulties. The language was everywhere now, following me, defining me. Can you tell me where that form was mailed from? Let me check. Typing. It was submitted online through our portal, but the mailing address on file is 847 Oakwood Drive, my son's house, where Claire lived. I need to contest this, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Of course. You have the right to appeal. I can mail you the forms, or if you have someone who can help you with the online portal, just mail them. To my address? Not Oakwood Drive. Certainly. But Mrs. Brennan, I want to make sure you understand what you're appealing. The evaluation is meant to protect you. A lot of seniors find that having a representative PAI actually reduces stress because they don't have to worry about managing bills, or I've managed bills for 50 years. I'm sure you have, ma'am. But things change as we get older. The evaluation will just determine what level of support you might need going forward. I closed my eyes, took a breath. How long do I have? The assessment is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. You'll receive notification of the date and time. Your representative will be invited to attend. My representative? Yes, ma'am. Claire Brennan. She'll be there to provide information about your daily functioning and any concerns about your financial management. Of course she would. I thanked him and hung up. For a long moment, I just sat there, the letter in my lap, understanding finally clicking into place. This wasn't just about medical records. This wasn't just about doctor's appointments and confused narratives. Claire was building a case. A documented, official case that I couldn't manage my own life. And if she succeeded, if this evaluation went the way she wanted, she wouldn't just be my healthcare proxy or my family contact. She'd control my Social Security, my income, my ability to pay for my own home, my own food, my own independence. I walked to Robert's old desk, pulled out the lockbox where we kept important documents. Inside was the folder marked financial bank statements, investment accounts, the deed to the house Robert and I bought 40 years ago, the house that was paid off, the house that, according to our estate plan, would go to our son when I died. Our son, who was married to Claire. I thought about the timing. Robert's death 7 months ago. Claire's sudden helpfulness. The medical notes that started appearing. The forms that got signed without my knowledge. The house was worth over $500,000 now. Our retirement accounts? Another $300,000? Robert's life insurance had paid out. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't poor either. And if someone could prove I was incompetent, unable to manage my affairs, they could control all of it. Not someday. Not after I died. Now? My phone buzzed. Another text from Claire. Hi, Mom. Want to grab lunch tomorrow? We need to talk about updating some of your paperwork. Nothing major, just making sure everything's in order. Love you. I stared at those 2 words. Love you. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out the yellow pages. Yes, I still had the actual book and looked up attorneys. Elder law, that's what Jenny had said. I needed someone who specialized in elder law. I found 3 listings. Circled them. Tomorrow morning, before Claire could show up with her concerned smile and her helpful suggestions, I was going to make some calls. Because now I understood what this was. It wasn't care. It was a takeover. The bank was busy for a Wednesday morning. I stood in line at First National, the same bank where Robert and I had opened our first checking account in 1978. The same bank where we'd deposited birthday checks for our son, where we'd gotten the mortgage for our house, where every Friday Robert would cash his paycheck and take me to dinner. I knew these people. They knew me. Or at least, they used to. When I reached the counter, the teller was new. Young, maybe 25, with perfectly manicured nails and a nameplate that read, Brittany. How can I help you today? I'd like to withdraw $5,000 from my savings account. She smiled, typed something, then stopped. Can I have your account number? I gave it to her. More typing. The smile faltered. One moment, Mrs. Brennan. I need to get a manager. Is there a problem? No, no problem. Just one moment. She disappeared into the back. I waited, aware of the line forming behind me, aware of the eyes watching. 5 minutes passed. Then a man emerged, mid-40s, suit and tie, walking with that careful authority managers have. Mrs. Brennan. I'm Kevin Hartley, branch manager. Would you mind stepping into my office for a moment? It wasn't really a question. I followed him past the tellers, past the desks, into a small office with generic motivational posters and a fake plant that needed dusting. He closed the door, gestured to a chair. Mrs. Brennan, I want to help you with your transaction, but I need to ask you a few questions first. Standard procedure. For a withdrawal from my own account? For withdrawals over a certain amount? Yes. Especially when there are flags on the account. My stomach tightened. What kind of flags? He pulled up something on his computer, angled the screen slightly away from me. It looks like there was a call to our fraud prevention line about 2 weeks ago. From a family member expressing concerns about your capacity to manage your finances. There it was. That word again. Capacity. Let me guess. Claire Brennan. He nodded slowly. She indicated that you've been having some confusion. Missing bills. Unusual spending patterns. She was worried about potential financial exploitation, that someone might be taking advantage of your situation. My situation. Mrs. Brennan, we see this a lot with our older customers. Adult children get concerned, and rightfully so. Elder financial abuse is a serious problem. People at your age are often targeted by scammers, or they make decisions that aren't in their best interest because they're not thinking clearly. At your age, not thinking clearly. The phrases were so practiced, so comfortable in his mouth. I'm not confused, and no one is scamming me. I want to withdraw my own money. And you absolutely can. I just need to verify a few things first. He picked up a pen, pulled out a form. What is the withdrawal for? That's my business. Of course. But when there are concerns on file, We have a responsibility to make sure vulnerable customers aren't being coerced or manipulated. I'm not vulnerable. His smile was patronizing. Kind, but patronizing. Mrs. Brennan, your daughter-in-law mentioned that you recently had some medical evaluations. Cognitive concerns. She was quite worried about you. I felt heat rising in my face. She has no authority over my bank account. Not yet, no, but she did mention that process was underway. And in the meantime, she asked us to be vigilant, to let her know if there were any unusual transactions. You've been reporting my transactions to her? We haven't released any specific account information without your authorization. But when a family member calls with legitimate concerns about financial exploitation, we take notes. We watch for patterns. I stared at him. So, if I try to access my own money, you call her? We might follow up? Yes. To verify that you understand what you're doing and that you're not under duress. This was insane. This was my money. My account. My name on every statement for 47 years. Mr. Hartley, I understand what I'm doing. I'm 72, not 7. I want to withdraw $5,000 because I'm hiring an attorney. Is that clear enough? Something shifted in his expression. An attorney for what? That's also my business. He set down his pen. Mrs. Brennan, I'm going to be frank with you. If you're being pressured by someone to hire an attorney, or to make large withdrawals, that's exactly the kind of red flag we're trained to spot. I'm not being pressured by anyone except you. I'm just trying to protect you. By keeping me from my own money. By making sure you're making informed decisions. He leaned forward, his voice dropping into that careful, soothing register. Look, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen families torn apart because an elderly parent made poor financial choices, and the kids had to pick up the pieces. Your daughter-in-law seems genuinely concerned. Maybe instead of fighting her, you could let her help. I stood up. I'd like to speak to your supervisor. I am the supervisor for this branch. Then, I'd like to file a formal complaint. His expression hardened slightly. You're certainly entitled to do that. But Mrs. Brennan, if there are court proceedings underway regarding your capacity, and you make large withdrawals or unusual transactions, that information could be subpoenaed. It could actually hurt your case. My case. Like I was already on trial? Are you refusing my withdrawal? No. I'm processing it. But I'm also documenting this conversation, as required by our elder protection protocols. He turned to his computer, typed, "The funds will be available at the counter in about 15 minutes. I walked out of his office, past the curious glances of other customers, and waited. When Brittany finally handed me the envelope with $50 bills, her smile was nervous. Do you need help carrying that to your car, Mrs. Brennan? Like I couldn't manage an envelope. I'm fine. Thank you. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and called the first attorney on my list. Law offices of Patricia Chun. Yes, I need to speak to someone about guardianship. About stopping it. Are you currently under guardianship, ma'am? Not yet. But I think someone's trying to put me under one. A pause. How soon can you come in? Today. Let me check. Typing. We have an opening at 3 o'clock. I'll be there. I hung up and looked at the bank through my windshield. They'd flagged my account. They were watching my transactions. They'd called me vulnerable and questioned my judgment. And somewhere, Claire was getting reports. This wasn't just about medical records anymore. This was about every part of my life. Patricia Chun's office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparer. Not fancy, but the receptionist was warm and the waiting room smelled like coffee instead of disinfectant. I filled out the intake form with my real signature. Clear, deliberate. The M in Margaret with the loop I'd been making since second grade. Mrs. Brennan? Patricia will see you now. The attorney was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. Her office was small but organized. Law books, framed diplomas, a photo of 2 kids on her desk. Thank you for seeing me on short notice. Of course. You mentioned guardianship on the phone. She sat, pulled out a legal pad. Tell me what's happening. I told her everything. The medical appointments, the notes I never authorized, the forged signatures, the Social Security evaluation, the bank. I showed her the documents, the fake signature, the old cognitive assessment Jenny had printed, the letter from SSA. Patricia studied each page carefully. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. How long has this been going on? Since my husband died? 7 months. And your daughter-in-law is the one driving this? Yes, Claire. Patricia set down the papers. Mrs. Brennan, what you're describing is called undue influence. It's when someone in a position of trust manipulates a vulnerable person for financial or personal gain. There was that word again. Vulnerable. I'm not vulnerable, I said quietly. I'm being made to look vulnerable. I know. And that's actually worse. She leaned forward. Because what she's doing is creating a paper trail. Medical records that say you're confused. Financial red flags that suggest poor judgment. Each piece alone looks like concerned family helping. But together, it's a pattern. Can she really get guardianship over me? If she files a petition and a judge believes you can't care for yourself? Yes. And once that happens, you lose almost everything. Your right to make medical decisions, financial decisions, where you live, who you see. The guardian controls it all. The room felt smaller suddenly. How do I stop it? We fight it. But you need to understand guardianship cases favor caution. Judges would rather err on the side of protection, even if it means taking away someone's rights. So we need to be strategic. She pulled out a fresh legal pad, started writing. First, we get you an independent medical evaluation. Not your regular doctor, someone who specializes in capacity assessments. Someone who can document that you are cognitively intact. Okay. Second, we file for an emergency protective order to prevent any changes to your medical or financial power of attorney until this is resolved. Can we do that? If we can show evidence of fraud or coercion, yes. These forged signatures help. She tapped the documents. Third, we request copies of all communications between Claire and your medical providers. If she's been misrepresenting your condition, we need proof. The nurse at my doctor's office? Jenny. She might help. Patricia wrote that down. Good. Healthcare workers who witness this kind of thing can be powerful witnesses. But we have to move fast. If Claire files for guardianship before we build your defense, we're playing catch-up. The Social Security evaluation is in 3 weeks. That's actually good. It gives us time. But I need to be there with you. Claire will be there too. Let her. If she contradicts what we can prove, it hurts her credibility. Patricia's expression hardened. Mrs. Brennan, I'm going to be blunt. This kind of case gets ugly. Family members will take sides. Things will be said about you in court filings. Your medical history, your mental state, your decisions, all of it becomes public record. My hands were shaking slightly. I pressed them flat against my thighs. If I don't fight, what happens? She wins. You lose your autonomy, probably your home. Everything your husband left you becomes hers to manage. And once guardianship is granted, it's almost impossible to reverse. The thought of Claire sitting in this house, sorting through Robert's things, making decisions about my life while I sat in some facility with activities directors and medication schedules. What do I need to do? Patricia handed me a sheet of paper. Sign this retainer agreement. My rate is $200 an hour. A case like this could run $10,000 to $15,000 before it's over. I thought of the $5,000 in my purse. The bank manager's suspicious eyes. The notes in my file. I have $5,000 cash. I can get more, but it might trigger more flags. Then we start with $5,000. And Mrs. Brennan? Don't sign anything Claire gives you. Don't go to any appointments without telling me first. Don't make any large purchases or unusual transactions. Everything you do from now on will be scrutinized. I signed the retainer. My real signature, clear and true. Patricia made a copy, handed me one. I'm going to file a preservation notice today with your doctor's office and the bank. It tells them that legal proceedings may be underway and they need to keep all records. No deletions, no alterations. What if Claire finds out I hired you? She will. And she'll probably escalate. Patricia's voice softened slightly. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay? Someone who's on your side? I thought of my empty house. My son, who'd barely called since the funeral. My daughter in Phoenix, who I hadn't told any of this. I'll be fine. Mrs. Brennan. People who do this, they don't stop when caught. They doubled down. If Claire realizes you're fighting back, she might move faster. File emergency petitions. Claim you're in immediate danger. It's a tactic. So what do? Document everything. Keep a journal with dates, times, conversations. Save every text, every email. And if she shows up at your house with papers to sign, call me before you open the door. I stood to leave. Patricia walked me to the reception area. One more thing, she said. You mentioned a nurse at the hospital. Jenny Martinez. Yes. I'm going to need to talk to her. If she's willing to testify that the medical narrative doesn't match your actual presentation, that's huge. I nodded, my throat tight. Patricia put a hand on my arm. You did the right thing coming here. A lot of people in your position don't realize what's happening until it's too late. I almost didn't realize, but you did. And that's going to make all the difference. I walked to my car, the retainer agreement in my purse next to the money, and wondered how much of that $5,000 would be left when this was over. Wondered if it would be enough. The call came 3 days later. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Brennan. This is Jenny Martinez. From Riverside Medical. My heart jumped. Jenny? Yes. Hello? I'm calling from my personal phone. Off the clock. Her voice was low, careful. I need to tell you something, but I also need you to understand, I could lose my job for this. I sat down. Okay. Your daughter-in-law came to the office yesterday. Asked to speak with Dr. Patterson privately. I wasn't in the room, but afterwards, I saw him updating your chart. What did he write? More notes about confusion. Difficulty following instructions. Something about you calling the office multiple times, asking the same questions, which you didn't. I checked the call logs. My chest tightened. She's lying to my doctor. Yes. And she's doing it in a way that sounds concerned, not malicious. She brings coffee for the staff. Thanks everyone for being patient with her mother-in-law. Talks about how hard it is watching someone decline. Jenny paused. Mrs. Brennan, she's building a narrative. And she's good at it. My attorney needs to talk to you. She said if you're willing to testify. I can't testify. Not officially. I have a family. A mortgage. If Riverside finds out I went against a doctor's assessment, I'm done. Her voice cracked slightly. But I can't sleep knowing what I'm watching happen. Then what can I do? Listen, there's something else. Jenny took a breath. There are recorded phone calls. Every time someone calls our office, it's logged and recorded for quality assurance. Those recordings are stored for 18 months. The calls where Claire told them I was confused. Yes. And the calls where you requested your records and were told you already had a family representative. All of it. But here's the thing, those recordings get purged on a schedule. Once they're gone, they're gone. How long do I have? The system shows the oldest relevant calls will be deleted in about 6 weeks. Maybe less. Can I request copies? Yes. But you need to file a formal legal request. And you need to do it through an attorney, because if you do it yourself, Claire might find out and convince someone the request is part of your confusion. Smart. She'd thought this through. My attorney can file that. Yes. Tell her to request all recorded communications related to your account for the past 12 months. Patient portal access logs too. Those show every time someone logged into your chart and what they looked at. I grabbed a pen, started writing. What else? There's a compliance office, separate from the medical staff. If someone files a complaint about HIPAA violations or falsified records, they have to investigate. It creates a paper trail that can't be buried. Should I file a complaint? Your attorney should. And she should reference the specific dates I'm about to give you. Jenny rattled off 4 dates. Those are the days Claire met with Dr. Patterson when you weren't present. Those are the days new notes appeared in your chart. I wrote them down, my hand shaking. Jenny, why are you doing this? Silence for a moment. Then, because 2 years ago, I watched this happen to my own mother. My sister did exactly what your daughter-in-law is doing. By the time I realized, Mom was in a nursing home and my sister had power of attorney over everything. Did you get her out? No. Mom died 6 months later. Never understood why her own daughter put her there. Her voice was thick. I was a nurse. I should have seen it. I should have stopped it. My throat ached. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just fight. And Mrs. Brennan, be careful. When people like Claire realize they're losing control, they get desperate. They escalate. What do you mean? I mean, she might try to have you hospitalized. Psych evaluation, claims of self-harm, anything that gets you into a facility where she can control the narrative. Jenny's voice hardened. Don't go anywhere alone with her. Don't eat or drink anything she gives you. I know that sounds paranoid, but I've seen people use sedatives to make someone appear confused during evaluations. Ice ran through my veins. You really think she'd do that? I think she's already forging documents and lying to doctors. So yes. We were quiet for a moment. One more thing, Jenny said. Document everything yourself. Start keeping a daily log. What you ate, what you did, who you talked to, how you felt. Timestamped. Take photos of your calendar, your bills, anything that shows you're managing your life. If this goes to court, you need to prove you're competent. I will. And Mrs. Brennan. The next time you have an appointment, if Claire is there, ask the doctor to step out and speak with you alone. It's your right. If he refuses, document that too. Thank you, Jenny. Really. Don't thank me. Just win. She hung up. I sat there, the list of dates in front of me, understanding the risk Jenny had just taken. She could lose everything for making that call. But she'd made it anyway. I called Patricia Chun immediately. I have dates, I said when she answered. And I know how to get the recordings. Tell me everything. I did. When I finished, Patricia was quiet for a beat. This nurse, she's credible. Yes. Then we move now. I'll file the records request today. Emergency preservation order for all communications and portal logs. And I'm going to file a HIPAA complaint with the hospital's compliance office, citing unauthorized disclosure of your medical information. Will that work? It'll force an investigation. And it'll put everyone at that hospital on notice that this case is being watched. Patricia's voice was firm. Mrs. Brennan, what your daughter-in-law is doing? Falsifying medical records? Forging signatures? Lying to providers? Those aren't just civil matters. If we can prove it, that's fraud. Potentially criminal. Criminal. The word hung in the air. Will it come to that? I don't know. But having that option puts us in a stronger position. She paused. How are you holding up? I looked around my quiet house. Robert's chair? Our photos on the wall? 47 years of life together. And someone was trying to erase my ability to live in the middle of it. I'm tired, I said honestly. But I'm not stopping. Good. Because neither am I after we hung up. I started a new notebook. Plain composition book. The kind I used to use for grocery lists. Day 1 of documentation, I wrote at the top. And then I began writing everything down. Every conversation, every moment I felt clear. Every bill I paid, every meal I made, every decision I executed without help. Proof that I was still here, still whole, still fighting. The urgent consultation was scheduled without my knowledge. I found out when Claire showed up at my door Thursday morning, earlier than usual, with 2 coffees and a tight smile. "Mom, I got a call from Dr. Patterson's office. They want to see you today. Something about your lab work." I hadn't had lab work in 6 weeks. What did they say exactly? Just that it's important. They had a cancellation and can fit you in at 10. She checked her watch. "We should leave soon." Every instinct I had screamed wrong. But if I refused, she'd mark it down. Another sign of confusion. Resistance to medical care. "Let me get my purse." I texted Patricia from the bathroom. "Claire taking me to unscheduled Dr. Apt. Something's wrong." Her response was immediate. "Do not sign anything. Record if you can. I'm 20 minutes away." I slipped my phone into my cardigan pocket, audio recorder app already open. The drive was tense. Claire made small talk about the weather, her daughter's dance recital, the new restaurant downtown. Normal conversation. But her hands were tight on the steering wheel. At Riverside Medical, she walked me straight past the check-in desk. "They're expecting us." The nurse who greeted us wasn't Jenny. Older woman, efficient, with no warmth in her eyes. "Mrs. Brennan, come on back." Claire followed without asking. The exam room was different. Bigger. A second chair already positioned next to the doctor's stool. Like they'd been expecting her. Dr. Patterson entered with a folder under his arm. His expression was grave. "Margaret, thank you for coming in on short notice." Claire said something about lab work. He exchanged a glance with my daughter Ina, quick, but I caught it. "Actually, this is about something more serious. Claire called me yesterday with some concerns, and I think we need to address them." My stomach dropped. "What concerns?" Claire's hand found mine, squeezed gently. The gesture would look supportive to anyone watching, but her grip was too tight. "Mom, I didn't want to worry you, but you've been scaring me. The confusion is getting worse." "I'm not confused. You called me 4 times Tuesday asking what day it was. You left the stove on again. And yesterday her voice got perfectly timed. Yesterday you didn't recognize your own grandson when he stopped by." I stared at her. Every word was a lie. I hadn't called her Tuesday. My stove was electric and had an automatic shutoff, and her son hadn't been to my house in 3 weeks. "That's not true." "Margaret," Dr. Patterson's voice was gentle, patronizing. "I know it's hard to recognize these changes in yourself. That's part of the disease process. But Claire has been documenting incidents, and I have to say, I'm concerned about your safety." "Disease process." Like it was already decided. "What disease?" "You've never diagnosed me with anything." He opened the folder. I saw my chart, filled with notes I'd never seen. "We've been monitoring your cognitive decline for several months now. The memory issues, the confusion, the difficulty with daily tasks. It's progressed to the point where I don't think you can safely live alone anymore. I want to see those notes." "Of course." He turned the screen toward me. I scanned the entries. All recent. All added in the past 2 months. Patient demonstrates poor insight into devices. Family reports wandering, medication, non-compliance, financial confusion. None of it was true. None of it had been discussed with me. I never said any of those things. "Mom, you don't remember?" "That's the problem." Claire's voice was thick with manufactured concern. "Dr. Patterson, show her the assessment form." He pulled out a paper. "Mental status evaluation request for immediate evaluation." The form had my name, today's date, and sections marked for observed behaviors during the visit. They hadn't evaluated me yet. The form was already prepared. "I'd like to call my attorney," I said quietly. Dr. Patterson's expression shifted. Margaret, if you're feeling confused about why you're here, I'm not confused. I understand exactly what's happening. I pulled out my phone. Claire's hand shot out, grabbed my wrist. Mom, please, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Let go of me. You're getting agitated. Dr. Patterson, you see, this is what I'm talking about. The paranoia, the aggression. I am not agitated. But my voice was rising. And I knew how it looked. Elderly woman, raised voice, refusing to cooperate. I want to leave. Margaret, I really think we should complete the evaluation first. Dr. Patterson stood, positioned himself between me and the door. For your own safety. My heart was pounding. This was it. This was the trap. If I got upset, they'd call it agitation. If I left, they'd call it impaired judgment. If I stayed, they'd complete their predetermined evaluation and use it to lock me into whatever they'd already decided. The door opened. Patricia Chun walked in, briefcase in hand, expression steel. I'm Patricia Chun, Mrs. Brennan's attorney. This appointment is over. Dr. Patterson straightened. I'm sorry. Who are you? I just told you. And unless you're detaining my client under an involuntary psychiatric hold, which would require specific criteria you haven't met, she's leaving. Now. This is highly irregular. We're in the middle of a medical evaluation, an evaluation she didn't consent to and wasn't informed about. Patricia's voice was sharp. And I have several questions about the notes in that chart, Doctor. Starting with when you documented conversations with my client that never occurred. His face paled slightly. Claire stood. This is ridiculous. She needs help, and you're preventing her from getting care. What she needs is protection from fraud. Patricia turned to Claire. And you should know that we've filed formal requests for all medical records, phone recordings, and portal access logs, including documentation of who added what notes to her chart and when. Claire's expression flickered. Just for a second. But I saw it. Fear. Mrs. Brennan, let's go. Patricia held out her hand. I took it. Stood. My legs were shaking, but I walked toward the door. Margaret, if you leave without completing this evaluation, I'll have to note that in your record, Dr. Patterson said. It will show lack of insight, refusal of care. Note whatever you want. Doctor, we'll see you in court. Patricia opened the door. As we walked out, I heard Claire's voice behind us, high and tight. She's not capable of making these decisions. You're all going to regret this when something happens to her. It sounded like concern, but what I heard was a threat. Patricia drove me home. Neither of us spoke until we were sitting in my driveway. That was close, she said finally. What would have happened if you hadn't come? They would have completed the evaluation, found you agitated and uncooperative, possibly recommended emergency psychiatric admission for observation. She looked at me. It's a common tactic. Get someone upset, document the reaction, use it as proof of instability. My hands were still shaking. How did you get there so fast? I was already on my way when I got your text. I filed the records preservation request this morning, and the hospital's compliance office called me within an hour. They wanted to schedule a meeting. That's good, right? It's very good. It means someone there is taking this seriously. She pulled out her briefcase, handed me a folder. These are the phone recordings. I got them this morning under emergency discovery. I opened the folder, transcripts, dates, times. Call 1, September 12th, 2:34 p.m., caller. Claire Brennan, hi. I'm calling about my mother-in-law, Margaret Brennan. I'm really worried about her. She's been so confused lately, forgetting to take her medications, asking me the same questions over and over. Is there any way the doctor could note this in her chart? I just want to make sure he knows what's happening at home. Call to September 19th, 11:18 a.m., caller. Claire Brennan, I need to update you on Margaret's condition. She left the stove on twice this week and didn't remember doing it. I'm afraid she's going to hurt herself. Can Dr. Patterson call me to discuss next steps? I think we need to talk about her living situation. Call 3, October 3rd, 3:47 p.m. Caller. Claire Brennan, Margaret, is getting worse. She's paranoid now, thinks people are stealing from her. She didn't recognize my son yesterday. I really think we need to consider memory care. Can the doctor provide documentation for a capacity evaluation? I read each one. None of it was true. All of it was documented, time-stamped, recorded. She called 6 times in 8 weeks, Patricia said. Each call escalating the narrative, each one adding new symptoms, and every time, the office added notes to your chart based solely on her word. Can we use this? Absolutely. This is evidence of a coordinated effort to misrepresent your condition. She pulled out another document. And this is the portal access log. I scanned the list. My patient portal had been accessed 43 times in the past 4 months. The email address was cbrenan.care@gmail.com. She was checking my chart almost daily. I whispered, yes. Looking at test results, reading notes, tracking appointments. She knew exactly what was in your file and what wasn't. She knew what she needed to build her case. The coldness of it stunned me. The calculation, the patience. There's more. Patricia handed me a final document. The signature analysis came back from our forensic document examiner. I looked at the report. Technical language about stroke patterns, pressure points, pen angle, but the conclusion was clear. The signature on the medical authorization forms dated August 15th is not consistent with known exemplars of Margaret Brennan's signature. High probability of forgery? That's evidence of fraud, Patricia said. Criminal fraud. What happens now? Now we file for an emergency protective order. We petition the court to invalidate any medical or financial authorizations signed in your name without your knowledge. And we request a full investigation into your daughter-in-law's actions. I looked at my house through the windshield. The home I'd lived in for 40 years. Safe, familiar, mine. Will she fight it? Yes, and it will get ugly. Patricia's voice softened. But Mrs. Brennan, you need to understand we're past the point of keeping this quiet. Once we file these motions, it becomes public record. Your son will know. The rest of your family will know. It will split people into sides. I thought of my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd married Claire, the father who'd stopped calling after his dad died. He'll choose her. Patricia didn't disagree. Maybe, but you can't let that stop you from protecting yourself. We sat in silence. There's something I need to tell you, I said finally. Something Claire doesn't know. Patricia waited. 6 months before Robert died, he changed his will. He was worried about Claire, the way she talked about money, the way she pushed him to retire early so we could sell the house and simplify. He didn't trust her. What did he change? The house doesn't go directly to our son anymore. It goes into a trust. I have lifetime use, and when I die, it's divided equally between our son and our daughter. Claire can't touch it. Patricia's eyes sharpened. Does Claire know about the trust? No? Robert never told them. He said he'd handle it after he was gone. But then the heart attack happened so fast, and I don't think our son ever checked. He just assumed the will stayed the same as it always was. Who's the trustee? Our estate attorney, Gerald Hoffman. He's managed our documents for 20 years. Patricia was already writing. Mrs. Brennan, this changes everything. If Claire thinks she's going to inherit $500,000 when you die, or when your son inherits, and she finds out that's not true, she'll know she wasted all this effort. Or she'll escalate even more. Patricia looked at me directly. Has she ever asked about the will? About what happens to your assets? I thought back. The questions after Robert's funeral. The offers to help organize paperwork. The suggestions about estate planning? Yes, several times. I always said it was handled. But you didn't tell her about the trust? No. Patricia closed her briefcase. Then we have leverage, and we need to use it carefully. She paused. Mrs. Brennan, I don't say this lightly, but you need to tell your daughter, the one in Phoenix. You need someone in your family who knows the truth about what's happening. She's busy. She has her own life. Call her tonight. Because if something happens to you, if Claire succeeds in getting guardianship, or if there's an accident, your daughter needs to know this wasn't confusion. This was calculated. The word accident hung in the air between us. You think Claire would? I think desperate people do desperate things. And once Claire realizes she's been caught, she becomes desperate. Patricia handed me her card. My cell number is on the back. Call me anytime, day or night. Don't open the door for Claire. Don't go anywhere with her. And please, talk to your daughter. After she left, I sat in my car for a long time. Then I pulled out my phone and called Phoenix. My daughter answered on the third ring. Mom, is everything okay? I took a breath. No, sweetheart, it's not. And I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The hearing was set for 3 weeks later. My daughter flew in from Phoenix the next day. When she walked through my door and pulled me into a hug, I cried for the first time since Robert died. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Sarah asked, anger and hurt mixing in her voice. I thought I was imagining it. And then I thought I could handle it myself. I looked at her, and I didn't want to believe your brother's wife would do this to me. Sarah's jaw tightened. I called him. He wouldn't listen. Said Claire was just trying to help and you were making it harder by being stubborn. It hurt, but I'd expected it. He'll see the truth eventually. Maybe, or maybe he won't. Sarah squeezed my hand. But I see it, and I'm not going anywhere. The next 2 weeks were a blur of paperwork and preparation. Patricia filed motion after motion. The hospital launched an internal investigation. The bank froze the family representative access on my accounts. The Social Security Administration put the capacity evaluation on hold pending legal review. Slowly, carefully, the walls Claire had built around me began to crack. But she didn't go quietly. She filed an emergency petition claiming I was in immediate danger, that I'd stopped taking my medications, that I was being manipulated by an attorney who was exploiting my confusion. The judge ordered an independent evaluation. A psychologist who specialized in capacity assessments. Someone with no connection to either side. Dr. Rachel Morrison met with me for 4 hours. She tested my memory, my reasoning, my ability to manage finances and medical decisions. She reviewed all the documents, the forged signatures, the phone recordings, the portal access logs. When she was done, she looked at me with something like anger in her eyes. Mrs. Brennan, in 30 years of doing this work, I have never seen such a clear case of manufactured incompetence. You are cognitively intact. Your judgment is sound. You are absolutely capable of managing your own affairs. I could have kissed her. Her report was submitted to the court. 12 pages of clinical assessment and damning conclusions about the attempts to portray me as impaired. The hearing itself was almost anticlimactic. Claire sat across the courtroom with an attorney who looked uncomfortable. My son was beside her, not meeting my eyes. Patricia presented the evidence methodically. The recordings, the forged signatures, the portal logs, the witness statement from Jenny Martinez, who'd decided at the last minute that her conscience mattered more than her job security. Claire's attorney tried to argue that she'd been genuinely concerned, that she'd only wanted to help, that any irregularities were misunderstandings. But the judge wasn't buying it. Ms. Brennan, she said, looking at Claire over her reading glasses. Concern for an elderly family member does not give you the right to forge documents, make false statements to medical providers, or attempt to seize control of someone's life. What you did was not help. It was exploitation. Claire's face went white. The judge's ruling was swift. All medical authorizations, signed without my direct consent, were invalidated. Claire was removed from any access to my records, my accounts, my information. A restraining order was issued preventing her from contacting my medical or financial providers, and the judge referred the case to the district attorney for investigation of fraud and forgery. Claire stood abruptly, whispered something harsh to her attorney, and walked out. My son followed her without looking back. I felt Sarah's hand in mine. "You won, Mom." "I know." But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival. 6 months later, I returned to Riverside Medical for a routine checkup. Different doctor, one I'd chosen myself. Patricia had helped me find someone who specialized in geriatric care. Someone who understood that age didn't mean incompetence. Dr. Morsono, relation to the psychologist, greeted me with a genuine smile. "Mrs. Brennan, how are you feeling today?" "I'm well, thank you." She pulled up my chart. "I see here there was quite a bit of turmoil with your previous provider. That's putting it mildly. Well, I want you to know that your medical care is yours to control. I will never speak with anyone about your health without your explicit permission. And if you ever feel like someone is misrepresenting you or your condition, I want you to tell me immediately. I will." The appointment was blessedly normal. Blood pressure, routine labs, a discussion about my arthritis medication. No one spoke to me like I was a child. No one answered for me. When I left, I stopped by the administrative office. There was a new person at the desk, but I'd been told Jenny Martinez still worked there, just on a different floor now. I left an envelope with the receptionist. Inside was a thank you card and a gift certificate to a restaurant downtown. "You saved my life. I hope you know that." Margaret in the parking lot. I sat in my car, the same car I'd been driving for 8 years. The one Claire had suggested I was too old to drive safely, and looked at the medical complex. I thought about how close I'd come, how easily it could have ended differently. If I hadn't noticed the note on the computer screen, if Jenny hadn't been brave enough to call, if Patricia hadn't moved fast enough, if I hadn't had the money to fight. How many people didn't have those things? How many were in facilities right now, stripped of their autonomy, because someone decided they were too old to know their own minds? My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Dinner tonight. I'm making Dad's lasagna." I smiled. Sarah had moved back from Phoenix. "Temporarily," she said, "but I suspected it would be longer than that." She'd started a new job remotely and rented a small house 2 miles from mine. Close enough to visit. Far enough to let me live my own life. "I'll bring the wine," I texted back. As I drove home, I passed the bank where Kevin Hartley had questioned my judgment. The Social Security office where I'd been treated like a confused old woman. The attorney's office where Patricia had taken my case when I had nothing but suspicion and $5,000 cash. I'd won. But the victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in this moment. Driving myself home, making my own decisions, living in my own house with my own name still attached to everything that mattered. I pulled into my driveway. The house looked the same as it always had, but I saw it differently now. Not just as home, as proof. Proof that I was still here, still sharp, still capable, still Margaret Brennan. Inside, I made myself tea and sat in Robert's chair, my chair now, really. I'd moved it by the window so I could see the garden he'd planted. The composition notebook was on the side table. I'd kept documenting, even after the hearing, just in case. But today, I wrote something different. Day 183. I am not confused. I am not incompetent. I am not someone's burden or someone's opportunity. I am 72 years old, and I know exactly who I am. And if you're reading this because something similar is happening to you, document everything. Find your Jenny. Find your Patricia. Don't let anyone write a version of you that isn't true. Because your story belongs to you, not to someone who wants to rewrite it for their own benefit. Stay strong. You're not alone. I closed the notebook and looked out at the garden. Somewhere across town, Claire was dealing with the consequences of what she'd tried to do. The investigation was ongoing. My son still wasn't speaking to me, but I was free. And sometimes, that's all the justice you need.